basically the Vikings have set themselves up to go true BPA, best player available in the draft. And that's something that the good franchises do. Just let the board play come to them, and going into the draft where, hey, you have your big board. It's all set up. Whenever you're on the clock, just take the player that is up at the top. Now, what happens sometimes is that you're pigeonholed. Is like, we have to draft a position X high. So now, instead of just drafting at the top of your big board, you have to scroll all the way down to position X. Sometimes it's down here, and sometimes it syncs up and life is good. But a lot of times you're drafting a specific player over another that you may have graded higher just because he plays that position that you've put yourself into, right? And that's exactly what the Vikings did, where you look to supplement and you sign a free agency for need, draft best player available. Just get the best players into the building and go from there. Long story longer, Kwesi is talking on Vikings YouTube channel with the great Tatum Everett about the Vikings draft strategy despite having only 4 draft picks. This is what Kwesi said, quote, "Obviously, the draft capital is something people talk about, but every draft pick has a commensurate value that you can kind of break up into lots of picks. If we want to pick 15 times, we could. Pretty Ricky Spielman, that was his thing. There's a way to do that where we're going to be smart, selective, try and find the best players that impact our team, but also knowing how do you best move around the board to get the best total collection of players to make your team the best. That's how we'll approach it. I think will be the best available kind of approach and mindset, which I love. I love BPA. I'm excited about that. I know I challenge our group, but we have grand ambitions, and it may be the coolest story ever that you went to the draft with 4 picks and you did something great with it, which will be kind of awesome, frankly, where the Vikings having 4 draft selections and all of a sudden they hit on a couple of Pro Bowlers, maybe an All-Pro, maybe a Hall of Famer, which would absolutely be the haters and the losers would be in shambles. It would be hilarious. But yeah, the Vikings being short on draft capital at this moment in time at 24. They had the comp pick from Kirk Cousins, 97. Then a couple of 5th and 6th round picks that aren't the Vikings. It's what happens, man. But remember, being able to go BPA is a true privilege. And you look at Randy Moss in 1998. You had Jake Reed, Chris Carter, both those 1,000-yard receivers. Chris Carter, a Hall of Famer, right? So receiver wasn't really a need. And the Vikings should have drafted a cornerback instead of a wide receiver. Adrian Peterson, 2007. We talk about this all the time. They signed Chester Taylor, ran for 1,000 yards in 2006. Even with Adrian in 2007, Chester still ran for like 850. It was great. That one worked out. Percy Harvin in 2009. The Vikings had Bernard Berrien as well as Sidney Rice. So receiver wasn't really a pressing need when the Vikings were drafting in the 20s, but Percy Harvin, the pride of Florida, dropped, and he was electric, when he was on the field. And in terms of this draft, so there's a lot of players who could potentially be available at 24 where it doesn't really sync up with position of need. Now, obviously, if a guy like cornerback Will Johnson out of Michigan, Kenneth Grant, the nose tackle out of Michigan, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, Ole Miss, Derek Harmon, defensive tackle of Oregon, Gray Zabel, interior offensive lineman from NDSU. Obviously, if they're there, that makes sense. And also, it does sync up potential BPA as well as position of need. But what if something weird happens? Well, what if, say, Shamar Stewart or Michael Williams or Matthew Golden are on the board at 24 and they're the top of the Vikings board? Now, edge rusher with Stewart and Williams, as well as a wide receiver for Matthew Golden, it isn't really at the top of the Vikings' needs, but just get good players in here and have them compete. All right, so even though you got Grenard, Van Ginkel, as well as Diamond Dallas Turner, not to mention Bo Richter and Gabriel Murphy, like if the top player on your list is available and he's an edge rusher, whether that's Stewart or Williams or Mike Green or Donovan or whoever, just go get him. Why the hell not? Or say the Vikings are in a spot where Jahad Campbell or Jalon Walker are on the board. Just take them. Everything else will sort itself out. Now, the true BPA in this spot, in our opinion, is what happens if Colton Loveland is on the board, right? And if he's the top player on the board, and even though tight end, like we've said before, is kind of a low-key need, but you have Hockenson, you have Oliver, all of a sudden you're just drafting another tight end in the first round. What are you doing? Well, we're taking the best player available, and guess what? It kind of works out because players leave. The players age out, they're out of contract, they retire, and just having a constant pipeline of good players, no matter their position. Well, now you're not going to take this to illogical extremes like, well, we drafted 17 punters because they're the best. Shut up. Shut your face. But in terms of, instead of pigeonholing yourself into drafting a specific position, just get good players. And guess what? Everything else you can supplement for positions of need, whether it's UDFAs, whether it's open free agency, whether it's trades, everything else can work out. But we're all up on the rules we want to follow in the draft. Best player available, draft a quarterback every year, or every other year at minimum. But I mean, the Vikings could have a lot of fun in terms of BPA because, all right, so Malachi Starks is a pretty obvious one. Jahdae Barron as well. But what if Luther Burden III is there? What if Golden somehow is there at 24? What do they do? And some of these BPAs like Emmett Warry, if he's there, I mean, makes too much sense. Or actually, a better question, like what happens if like Kelvin Banks or, well, Campbell won't be there in all likelihood, but say Kelvin Banks, who's only played left tackle at Austin, like what if he's a top player on your board? What do? I mean, Darisaw might be on the PUP list to start 2025, but do you move Banks inside to guard? Or do you potentially trade Brian O'Neill? Like, what do you do? These are good problems to have. These are champagne problems. Just take the best player available at your selection, whether it's the first, the third, the fifth, or the sixth round. Just do that and go from there. But your thoughts are thoughts. Kwesi expands on how the Vikings are going to approach this draft. Best available kind of approach and mindset. I love it. I love that. Let us know your thoughts, our thoughts, comment section. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skol, production value.